So it's 4 o'clock and we'll start on time. I just want to do a couple of reminders. The first one, you know, to actually not put anything in the chat because I'm trying to really pay attention um, to everybody that's present. So I appreciate, whatever comments you have, especially greetings. Someone just greeted me, which was very kind. Uh, but if at the bottom of your Zoom screen there are reactions and it'll say raise hand. And so when we start having a discussion, it's good just to raise your hand and then I can acknowledge you. Um, and then you just say your name and then ask your question or make your comment, whatever works. Sam just put his thumb up, which is another way to agree with people. So thanks, Sam. Um, the other thing I wanted to say is we got a lot of great questions and comments about vocabulary for IEP meetings. I actually found them and then I sent it out to you. On USBE, there's a parent portal. And in the parent portal, there are all the special ed terms in English, but you can also have it translated instantly into Spanish. And um, based on your Microsoft uh, software, you can also translate it into Dari and Swahili and any kind of language, any language that you need. So I also embedded that into the course, and I want to make sure that when you get to the course that you read all the announcements. So the announcements will do updates and especially things that are going on at USBE that impact interpretation services. We had a meeting with, and I'm going to give you these names so you know them. Tracy Gooley, who is in the assessment department, and she works very closely with the WIDA assessment for students learning English as well as special needs students or neurodiverse students. So that's Tracy Gooley. And then Kim Fratto, who's the director of special ed. She and I have been working for about 6 or 7 years to figure out why there are issues related to dual services, which means special needs services as well as services for students learning English because they're entitled to dual services. And then also the issue of over-identification of students learning English as special needs students. Language is not like a deficit. It's not a special need if people aren't speaking English fluently, because the point of education is to support students with both services, which would be special needs services, if that's the case, after identification in Child Find, and students learning English. So again, raise your hands and the reaction buttons help you do that. And I'll acknowledge you and then say your name, your question or your comment. Always read the announcements in the Canvas course and all the special education terms for an IEP meeting are in the parent portal. And you can have them translated. And I also put that, I think, either an announcement or send it to you in an email. I'll tell you that we actually had a really good meeting. And again, it was with Kim Fratto, USBE Special Ed Director, Tracy Gooley, who works with WIDA and also the assessment department, and then Canyon School District. Canyon School District, their federal programs person, Beverly Herman, and their special ed person, Amber, which I don't remember her last name, work together, and they're embedding the pre-identification processes in their SIS system. They have Skyward. So we had this really powerful meeting, talking about the components of the system that would make it much easier to keep track of students learning English and also students identified for special needs. So I'm going to pause here and I'm open to any questions. Remember, the Canvas course should be opened, and I'll check to make sure that it is. I sent you an email related to our technical person at Canvas Help. She's the one who set everything up, and you should be able to get into the course. And remember, it's at your own pace and do it thoughtfully. The first module is really about introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about your background. And every Friday, I'll go in and read your responses. You know, there are 114 people, and so I have other responsibilities, but I'm keeping Friday just for working on looking at your discussion posts. And again, all the discussion posts is not about grades. The discussion points, when you discuss with other people and you share your ideas, that's where the learning happens. So, you know, because we're a community of learners focused on really benefiting students. And each discussion is one point, but it's not about gathering points, because if you complete your discussion, it's just completed. There's no grade or points, but it's just a reminder for you to make sure that, you know, by September 30th, 30th, you've completed the 10 modules. So I'll stop and see if there are any questions, and then I'll share my screen so we can become familiar with the actual legislation that this interpreter's training supports. So anybody who has a question, you can just raise your hand or unmute and ask your question. Okay, seems like no questions. So I'm going to share my screen, and someone let me know if you can actually see this. So someone unmute and tell me if you can see this. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thelma, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so if you look at this document, remember, this is legislation that happened 2 years ago by Dan Johnson and I think it was Senator Thurman. It's HB 302. And the whole point of this legislation is to make sure that communication and assistance for students learning English and their parents and their families, which includes guardians, really engages the family and the student. So it's for the students learning English, it's their parents and their families. So if you look at it, it says recommended interpreter qualifications, which we've put in place because we have this course. And then we have developmental funding for anyone who wants to go on and get advanced certification. And it says certification or education specific experience. And so this is really about educational settings. And when you look at it, you can see that it's interpretation if you're a parapro and you're in the classroom, using your language with the teacher or the students or the families that come in, impromptu meetings, enrollment or registration processes. Last week, we talked a lot about the IEP process. The registration process is one of the most challenging experiences for families who speak a language other than English, for lots of reasons. Sometimes they're not interpreters. Those things that should be translated aren't translated. The expectation is to use computers, but no one is there to help them. So the registration process is really a critical critical piece, as well as obviously, you know, the educational and occupational planning process with the counselors. And last week we had some really great comments about the work that a district is doing. I think it was a district or a school that was really working with counselors to help them better understand that putting programming students into lower level classes with low expectations does not help them in preparing them for coursework that's career and college coursework. So that piece is really important. The other thing is fee waiver process. Some of you probably know this, but about 7 years ago, when I was working with resettlement agencies, there was a really great colleague of mine who actually, when I was there, working with her in their offices, she showed me an invoice of like for like, I don't know, something like $300 that was in English and was given to a family, might have been a Swahili family or a family that was speaking English, but the invoice was actually in English and not in the language they understood. And then because they didn't really understand it, these particular districts were referring them to collection agencies that then ruined, their credit ratings. So when we started dealing with this and looking at it with the Assistant Attorney General in our office, we saw that, 25 years ago, there had been a class action suit by, I don't know, 5 or 6 districts and families who were suing the state board for not really providing equitable access based on the language that they understood. And so for 25 years, there had been a permanent injunction against all the districts in Utah. And so when we found this out, we ended up going through a process so that USBE actually has a department related to fee waivers. So equitable access and economic disadvantage, is something that we should all understand. Again, parent engagement activities in relationship to creating environments where families have the language that they need to understand what's going on, disciplinary meetings. My experience with school community councils, which, really is a good opportunity for families to understand how funds are being spent, ends up being not very inclusive because of the issue of interpreters. Of course, school board meetings, other activities, interactions between parents, the student, and educational staff. So this legislation, you can see the way this is organized. This is exactly from the legislation that was passed in 2022, which also includes the requirement to have a language access policy. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if you have any questions related to the legislation and the obligations for every situation that requires interpretation.
I have a question. Hi,
Yes,
I'm Yilma Diaz. I work in a Washington County School District at Pine View Middle School.
yes.
And I have a question for the finance part of it. For number one, so with this USBE legislature, so do they have to have the translations in Spanish, or they just need us, or do they have just a requirement that somebody needs to go and physically translate for them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the rest of because, you're all interpreters, the rest of the legislation actually includes written translation to improve instruction and assistance by teachers, counselors, administrators to a student learning English and the student's parents and families. So, and the state board shall provide to an LEA notification of these requirements. So your point is it's not just interpretation services,
Hmm.
but it's written. It's also,
Okay.
you know,
So,
written translation has to be provided for families.
so is this something that we would do or that our financial secretaries are required to do? Ours is a
Well,
little stubborn. Like ours is kind of mean, actually. We have a lot of non-speakers and she never lets us translate. She refuses. She's like, no, they can do it on their own. And so that's why I'm wondering if I should kind of relay this information over to her.
well, I think you should actually have your administrator contact me because
Okay.
you realize that they're actually breaking the law.
Yeah,
Your
yeah, she's
school's breaking the
stubborn.
law.
And I thought that I'm like, next time she does that, I will go to admin on that. But I didn't know if like we should translate documents for them. Are they available elsewhere or are they available to the secretaries that do finance?
Okay, so I'm just going to try to be clear because
Okay.
it really depends on whatever funding is available at the district level. And
Mhm.
they provide district funding to the school district. And the reason I'm saying that is that you cannot use any federal funds for translation or interpretation. And the reason you can't is that it's a violation of the student's civil rights and the parent's civil rights. And so as a consequence, it has to be paid through state funds.
Okay.
Right. So that's really the point, and that's determined by the way in which the district allocates funding to the schools and the actual language access policy. So I would suggest that all of you go to your district website and see if you can find their language access policy because it's state law. They're required to have it. And the model policy is on our USBE Title III, but it includes all the stuff that I just got through telling you, showing you.
Okay.
Okay. Because if they don't have the language access policy approved by your board, then, they're violating state law.
Okay. Makes sense.
So is that helpful?
Yes, it really is. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome anytime. Great question. Other questions?
This one is going to be recorded, right?
Yeah, yes, it's recording
Okay,
right now.
because when you explain the founding, probably I don't understand very well, so probably I'm going to listen again the recording because I want to be clear in how is founding, like you say, by the state or by the district. I really want to be clear on the.
Yes, well, when you actually go to the, you know, the modules in the Canvas course, all of it is written down too. So you'll have that. That's why the, revised syllabus, I send it out to you. You should download it and keep it because in there, everything that I went over is there. I mean, every single detail in relationship to the work that we're doing and the state law is included.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
My question is regarding to the volume of what we are going to translate and interpret. Is there a maximum
No,
amount or?
okay, so remember, you're not being certified to translate anything. You're being certified to interpret, which is oral translation, it's interpretation, right? And so whenever you're called upon to do translation or, excuse me, interpretation,
Mhm.
it's all the situations in education that I just showed you that's in
Right,
the
that
law.
happens during the school day, which is perfect. Okay, just I just wanted to clarify because they're talking about the funding and I completely understand the funding, but it's not that the state is going to pay us, it's like how the school is going to do that. But
Yes.
our basic objective, or at least my objective, is to communicate the best possible and relate everything from the school as well to the parents, to the Spanish speaking parents. I
Yes.
mean, they
Yeah.
can be fully knowledgeable of what is happening.
Well, yes, but the other point is, remember, you're actually interpreting what, in all these meetings, what people are saying in English. You're not adding anything on to that.
Correct. But in my case, in my personal case, the school district has a person in office in the district office to translate the documents and to also interpret, right? Because there is so much communication, and I am dedicated to a middle school, so my population is only the families that are residing in this for this school, and I have all sort of communication from admin and from teachers and from parents' questions as well that I relate to counselors and to the teachers as well. So
Yes,
anyway,
yeah,
I don't know.
that's a perfect example.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Questions or clarifications or experiences that you've had that we can learn from? And remember, we don't have to spend an hour. We've designated this hour at 4 o'clock because people find having a choice of a 4 o'clock session as well as a 7 o'clock session fits their schedules. And of course, this will be uploaded to our interpreter YouTube playlist.
Dr. Strata, this is Sonia with Alpine School District.
Hi, Sonia.
Just had a quick question in regards to that funding that you were talking about. So, or decisions that need to be made, is that on a school level or a district level?
Well, the district has several pots of funding, right? Several funding streams. And all the state funds that they have, whether it's for literacy or whatever it is, they can braid them and put them together so they can have an effective way to actually ensure that interpretation happens. Districts do things very differently. So one district will actually ask every school what their needs are, and then they'll submit a plan, which is the school improvement plan, and then the plan will be funded by the district or questioned by the district or whatever. In other districts, and I think this is really interesting, when I visit them and when I visit a school and ask a principal, do you know your Title III funds? You know, they'll say no, because the district just gives them, they keep all the money at the district. And then they say to the school, well, these funds will be used, or you can use them for hiring 3 paraprofessionals who work with English learners. But sometimes the schools don't know how much money are even allocated to them. The district just tell them. You see, so it just depends.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that
Okay. Thank you.
is that helpful, Sonia?
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good questions, everybody. Alyssa. Alyssa raised.
Had a hard time unmuting myself.
That's all right.
My question is, in the future, is there going to be an opportunity for us to also become certified as translators on top of being certified as interpreters?
So right now, what the advanced certification process, that would be part of the advanced certification process. So once you get level 1, which is, you have a certification to interpret in all these different situations based on state law, then people who have completed and done very well in the level 1 work and want to go on to the advanced certificate, then that would be another component that you could pursue. Is that helpful, Alyssa?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I know negotiating like the reactions with the hand and the unmuting and all that is, ends up taking a little time, so don't worry about it. Other questions or comments? I think once you all start the Canvas course, there'll actually be a lot more kind of questions and conversations, because you'll start having more of a background on what the national standards say about what interpreters should know and what they should be able to do.
A question regarding the notes that we need to do with a Zoom attendance log.
Yes.
Probably it's a silly question, but how do you have a certain specific range of how many words do you want?
No,
Okay.
it's not a silly question. You should never, none of you should feel, none of you should feel like any question is silly. I mean, because oftentimes the question you ask is a question that everybody else wants to ask too, but just, for some reason, shy or whatever, won't ask. So no question is silly. The reason the attendance log is important is it'll help me see, because you're keeping your own attendance. I'm not like this school teacher that says, calls your name and has you say here or anything like that. So you keep your own attendance, but in the log, there's a space for you to write down a sentence or anything that you discovered, anything that interested you. So there were a lot of people who actually watched the recording, and then they emailed me things about, IEPs and special ed and stuff like that. And so that's what you would actually put into your log. It could be a sentence. The whole point is when you put something down in a log, you're putting something down that was meaningful to you. Okay, it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with me finding out what you're interested in. So it's about, sharing with me what's interesting to you so I can better understand your interests. So does that help, Patricia? Oh, I love it. She put her thumb up. Okay, great. Oh, and Sam gave a sparkling heart. I like that, Sam. Other questions? So I'll just tell you that I look forward to our Zoom sessions for lots of reasons. Canvas is interesting, but it's not really interactive, right? So we don't really get to know each other than the things that are posted. That's why your posting is so important, because that's how other people get to know you as a learner, right? But I look forward to these sessions because your questions are always so good, and your intentions really represent the kind of legislative opportunity that we have to make sure that families and students are really engaged in their education. Right. And so this is, for me, really purposeful and really important. So I'm always excited to see you and to hear your viewpoints and hear the things that you want to better understand. So, you should just feel free. So I'm going to wait for a couple more minutes, and remember, if we're finished, we're finished, and we don't have to take the entire hour. I don't, I don't like make up things for people to kind of absorb their time, because we all have other things and other responsibilities and families and pets and, probably people grading homework or doing whatever, or fixing a great Valentine's Day meal. Alyssa,
Oh, Sorry, me again. I have a question on the legal side of things. While we are still in the process of becoming certified, is it still okay for us to act as interpreters and translators for our schools?
Yeah, yes, it's absolutely, because they're relying on you and they're asking you, right? The certification helps you in all kinds of different contexts, right? So it's not really so much the question of legality as much as it is, a way to ensure that the kind of language services that are provided for schools end up being available for them. The fact that you'll be more skilled and know what the national standards are, is a benefit for your own professional growth, as well as, your future, your future goals in relationship to being a certified translator, interpreter.
Okay, thank you. And my next question, when is the level 2 going to be available?
We don't really know right now. Today, I actually had a meeting with the assistant superintendent and we have an RFP is a request to have an outside vendor actually conduct the advanced course. And so we have that all approved. The superintendent approved it. We have the funds. It's like $330,000 for this advanced course. And so we just have to wait to see who will respond, like which company is going to respond and provide the advanced coursework for people who are interested in taking the advanced coursework and do well in the level 1 certificate. So is that helpful, Alyssa?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Sonia.
Yes, I just wanted to comment that I appreciate educators, directors, or professionals who need interpretation services for parents. For example, just 2 minutes before this Zoom meeting started, I received an email from our online director for Alpine School Online. They're trying to communicate with a parent. See, they're only Spanish speaking, and reached out to me, actually reached out to our department, but because our department is so swamped with WIDA, and to be honest, I'm swamped with what I'm doing too, but I understand the need and I love facilitating that easement of communication. And so I told her, no problem, I'm happy to help. And so, but I appreciate the fact that some professionals are very cognizant of this need, the importance of communicating clearly. And it happens to be, I believe, a SPED student as well. Anyway, because there's some concerns on the student's education, and they clearly want to make sure that mom and dad or whoever the adults are watching for the student are understanding the progress or lack of. And so I love stepping up to the plate to facilitate that communication. And I'm just super excited for this program.
Well, Sonia, that's a really good viewpoint, because that's the other question. The other question is, how willing are native English speakers or just English speakers, the dominant language, how willing are they to really ask for the kind of help that's necessary to engage families? When I previously, and I still do sometimes, it depends on my work with the district, do focus groups with families. I always have an interpreter there, obviously. And the reason that's really important, again, it goes back to this idea of clear information that helps the parents really support and make better decisions for their students and their education. So, it's really a valuable, and now because, it's a state law, we actually have more leverage, more influence to get it done. So I really thank you for your comment.
You bet.
Anyone else?
Just a comment from last week. I learned that probably when we interpret it in the future to district of people or parents, something that probably I would like to do, and I don't know if I will be allowed to do that, because I feel right now like I don't know where am I at. What are the restrictions? What are the things that I have to be, aware of what I can do regarding interpretations? But something that last week I learned is that I'm going to interpret it, everything the other people is going to say without adding or taking away. And it's something that probably is right now, I can see that is a misunderstanding. People, they thinking like, hey, advocate for me, so I'm going to say something, but add whatever I need because I need somebody who can help me. The same as the school, when you translate, please translate, but make sure like you clarify this part. And I think we need to be strong, and when we are in the position to interpret it, to clarify that. I'm going to repeat whatever you're going to say, but I'm not going to add or taking away, which right now I feel like most of our probably administrators or families or parents, they asking for the extra help. Just advocate for me, so add or taking away, I'm okay with that. And we need to make sure like we're clear on that.
Yeah, and I think when you read the national standards and you see the standards are really clear about the skills and the objectives, and so you'll feel more confident because you know that the way in which you're interpreting fits what the national standards actually expects, right? And the other thing is, remember, the responsibility of educators is to actually know federal and state law. If they're administrators, that's their obligation. It's not your obligation to kind of salve over or make excuses or try to cover up or support
Mm.
in a way that takes away their responsibility. I mean, it's their responsibility. It's not your responsibility. So that piece is very important. Sonia?
I was just going to say that goes to being ethical about what we're doing. I remember you mentioned that last week. And so number one, I'm an honest person, period. Number two, I'm not going to, if someone would ask me to say something that I shouldn't or what have you, I won't do it. So I think it speaks to the ethical part of what we are doing as interpreters.
Yeah, and when you see how the standards are organized, they have, the title of the standard, then they have the ethical principle, and then they have the skills related to what you learn to be ethical related to what the standard is. So it really helps you focus the kind of work that you really want to do. That's the work of the interpreter, not the work of the educator who might not know or is impatient or whatever. So thank you so much for saying that, both you and Patricia. Okay, any other, as someone put in the chat, be objective. It's really called fidelity of interpretation. So be faithful to what people are saying, not how you're interpreting what they're saying.
And if I can just mention, it's okay if you didn't capture everything. It's okay to re-ask. Can you repeat that? Just so you can be clear as the interpreter to make sure that you are repeating exactly what they said.
Yeah, that's right. I had someone at the district level who was subbing for a principal, and when she was in the IEP meeting, she said, okay, so we're stopping. We're not going to have the people in the IEP meeting just talk endlessly without stopping so that, the parent can really understand what the person is actually saying. Right. So that's a really good strategy. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, I'm just going to summarize briefly and say, enjoy, I know that you're really dedicated and you care about the way in which you're serving the needs of children and their families and the communities. And you know, the first standard is accuracy and fidelity. The ethical principle is interpreters strive to render all messages in their entirety and accurately, as faithfully as possible to the best of their ability, without addition, distortion, omission, or embellishment of the meaning. So when you start, you know, looking into the course, and you personally will actually assess yourself, what you're pretty good at, what you're good at, and what you need to work on. And this is for you personally to work on. This has nothing to do with me or my expectations. It's all for you. So that's my summary. And I just want to say from the deepest part of my heart, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your commitment to the children of Utah.
Thank you,
so
Dr.
much.
Estrada.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.